Hello and welcome to Michigan Business Talk. My name is Mike Doctor, and I'm glad you're here. Thank you for joining us. It is going to be another great day here, and we got some cool stuff we're going to talk about as it relates to conversations you need to have when you're going through a rebuild. It's difficult, and I'm going to go through some of the people that I feel are necessary to have those conversations with. I'm going to go through why those conversations are important, what those conversations might be, what they might look like, and we're going to accomplish a lot in the next 20 minutes. So just to get started here, I want to do some housekeeping things. First of all, thank you again for joining us. I appreciate it. If you guys could do me a favor, if you're listening to this and you haven't done it yet, and you appreciate it and you like it, and in any way, shape, or form enjoy the stuff you're listening to, if you could just like on the post, and you could just like on the podcast, or like and give it a rating, however you feel, that would be awesome. I would really appreciate the engagement. Your comments are very welcome. We really appreciate that, and we really appreciate you sharing this with other individuals who we know it might be able to help, or who I know it might be able to help, who we meaning you and me, right? And, maybe help them through some of their tough times as they're rebuilding, or some of the other episodes from, episode 1. We had some great interviews. I was listening through some of those the other day, and my goodness, there's some really good stuff on there. I'm thinking about doing a best of too, so that's awesome. So that is the housekeeping there. So thank you so much for that. And again, if you have any questions, you can always find me at my website at mikedoctor.com. But last week we talked about ego. Right, we read an excerpt from Ryan Holiday's great book, Ego is the Enemy. And we talked about when things go wrong, how sometimes you have a situation and the talk starts in your brain, and we're going to talk about those conversations today. But a lot of people take it really hard. And they take it really hard a lot of times because they're scared of what's going to happen next. They've created their identity on something. They've staked their claim on something. They've chosen a specific route to go with their career, a specific route to go. Maybe it was personally, maybe it was with their marriage. Maybe it's just even a friendship. Heck, maybe it's a family relationship and you chose to do something and that something is completely blown up in your face. That happens, right? That happens. And now you need to have conversations about it. This goes far beyond business. The application a lot of times is in business, because in any type of business, there's an inherent amount of risk. And in any type of entrepreneurship, there's an inherent amount of risk. And I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs that listen to this, whether they're in real estate or in insurance, or small business owners, or even people who are taking on risk every day in an entrepreneurial type of role, meaning they're acting in an entrepreneurial capacity for a company. They're making decisions in the executive seats, right? And they're making those types of decisions, and those decisions have consequences. And sometimes you just screw up, and sometimes you make a bad decision. And when that happens, man, that really sucks, right? That really, really sucks. And it's hard. It's hard mentally. And there's conversations that have to come out of that. These conversations that come out of that, they're necessary, but they're never easy. Man, are they never, ever, 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 ever easy. It's horrible. It's exhausting. There's stress. There's all the lead up. There's the playing the back and forth in your brain of, if I say this, are they going to say that? How do I justify this? I did this. And now I need to explain why and how that was a contributing factor. And all of these things, they force us to look at ourselves, and they force us to shine a light on all the areas where we screwed up, right? And all the bad decisions we made. And when we shine a light on those things, when we shine a light on those areas and shine a light on those decisions, a lot of times we don't like the jagged edges and the corners that we chose not to look at the first time. We thought it was a perfectly round marble when we were trying to roll a freaking square down the driveway. And we were pushing it and pushing it and forcing it and pushing it and forcing it and pushing it. And then it exploded. And sometimes maybe that's our fault. Other times maybe it's a massive catastrophe like COVID, right? Or something like that. Either way, it doesn't matter. You still need to have conversations with people. You still need to have the conversations with people because you still need to figure out how to be honest with yourself. Okay? So who do we have the conversations with? Who is it important to have the conversations with? Well, it depends on your situation, but I found that there's pretty much three different areas that you are going to have conversations with. There's three different, groups that you're going to have conversations with. You're going to have conversations with institutions, right? These institutions, they can be banks, they can be lenders, they can be professional relationships that you have, maybe not the closest business partners, but still business partners, right? Business partners who you've worked with. Maybe they're suppliers for you, distributors, whoever else, the salespeople that, come in every week and, take you out to lunch and buy coffee and all this other stuff. Maybe these are the individuals that you need to start having conversations with. And these conversations are, hey, things changed. Something changed. Something changed and it's not good. But I need to be honest about it now because I need to figure out what to do. Because you can't just hide. That's the hardest part with the institutional conversations is you want to hide from these conversations because it's embarrassing. These people trusted you. These people believed in you. These people bought you. They bought whatever the heck it was that you sold them. And now you have to go back to them and tell them that your situation is not what you portrayed it to be. And again, this could be as a result of many different things. This could be something that's your fault, or it could be what happened in 2020, where it's not your fault and the whole state of Michigan was on lockdown and your business couldn't operate for whatever reason. And now you're in a scenario where you need to have conversations with these lenders and explain what is going on and what's happening. And these are the conversations that we feel we need to justify and tell a story, tell some sort of massive story about, oh my goodness, this is the poor me, this is everything that happened. Because we want these individuals to somehow think that we're a victim here. And sometimes we are, but a lot of times it's just, we just screw up. We just screw up. We just make a bad decision. You can't always make the right decision. No one's right 100% of the time. I've said that 1,000 times on this podcast, and I know I've said it in my blog. And if you follow me on Twitter, I say it on Twitter when it comes to finance and when it comes to stock picks and things like that. No one is right 100% of the time. You can't be. It's impossible. But it's not about winning and losing. It's not about the failure. It's about how you respond to the failure. It's about how you actually move forward, move through, move beyond, and how you treat the people that you're responding to in the midst of it. There's a lot of people right now who are facing very tough financial situations. They're facing very tough business situations, and it has nothing to do with them. And you know what? We can sit here and we can blame our leadership, and we can blame the economy, and we can blame people for living in fear and not wanting to get out of their house and buying in and all this other stuff. And we can blame this party or that party or this person or that person or this decision or that decision. But the only thing we're not doing is looking at ourselves. Why didn't we save more money? Why didn't we have better investments? Why didn't we buy Bitcoin 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago when everybody told us to? What about those decisions that you made? What about those? Those are things that are contributing factors to right now too. And you've heard me say this before too. A friend of mine, Wesley Goob, former mentor, always says a ton of feathers still weighs a ton. All the little things you do add up to the point where there's something that happens where it's a straw that breaks the camel's back and now everything comes tumbling down. Or it goes the other way and everything starts rumbling the right way and rolling for you and rocking for you and life is good. It goes both ways. But when it goes bad, the first place we need to look at is ourselves. And when we have these conversations with people, whether it's institutions, whether it's individuals, which is the next category, and we'll talk about that, or whether it's with ourselves, we need to make sure that we're honest. That's what it's coming back down to every single time, honesty and authenticity. So having these conversations with banks and lenders, they're used to these things right now. It doesn't make it any easier, but I promise you what makes it harder is not having them and not having them right away. If you're in a bad spot, you need to call the people who either you have money that you owe or they've lent money to you, whether it's your mortgage, whether it's your car lease, whether it's your car payment, whether it's a bank loan, whether it's a bank note, whether it's whatever, internet online funding thing you did, whatever it is, whoever's giving you money, you need to talk to them and you need to talk about why and how you can't make payments. And they will respect honesty and authenticity more than they will a sob story. Because guess what? They hear 1,000 sob stories a day. Sob stories, not stop stories. I don't know what a stop story is, but a sob story is when somebody just whines about their circumstances. That's not what we're talking about. Talking about that makes absolutely no sense. Do you guys like it how I screw up in the middle of these rants? I did it last time too. I said something like doo-doo or something like that. And everything was really effective up until I said that. But I don't edit this stuff, so it's real. Here we go. Now you know. Moving on from institutions, people, family, friends, mentors, close business associates. These are people that maybe, obviously family and friends, those are the hardest ones to talk to. And this goes back to the ego type of thing. And we'll talk about that when we talk about ourselves too. But it goes back to the ego. We're so concerned with how other people view us and how other people think about us that the hardest people to be honest with outside of ourselves is our close relatives, our close friends and family, our pack, which really, 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 really sucks because those are the individuals that we should feel the most comfortable with. Those are the people we've chosen to spend our lives with. Those are the people we've chosen to keep in our lives one way or the other, whether we're codependent or whether we're healthy. We've chosen to keep these people in our lives. We should be able to share things with them. We should be able to come closer together and solve problems together. We shouldn't be afraid of that. We shouldn't be afraid of that. The second we get afraid of that is the second we start isolating. And the second we start isolating, things start to implode at a faster rate. Why? Because if we've bitten off more than we can chew for whatever reason, when that stuff starts to tumble, it exponentially grows. It exponentially grows, and you don't think it's going to, but it does. It does. It exponentially grows, and it comes quicker, and it comes faster, and it comes harder, and it comes right at your face. And then all of a sudden, you're forced to reckon with it because just like that history test or whatever else that you procrastinated for in high school or in college or whatever else, the day before the exam, you have to study and you have to cram and you have to realize that you need to learn all 12th century medieval history or whatever the heck. I don't know if those things correlate. I don't really care, but you get my point, right? You get my point. You need to learn all that stuff in 5 hours. Mildly buzzed because you chose to go have a few beers with your friends at B-dubs and watch the game instead of study. All of these things, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. You can't procrastinate. You got to attack problems now. The quicker you attack problems, it's like ripping off a Band-Aid quickly opposed to doing it really slowly. It's the same concept, guys. The exact same concept. And these conversations are that way. They're painful right away. They're so painful right away. They're painful right away, and it's like all of your senses are on alert, and you can be really defensive, and we'll talk about that in a second, like how to approach this. But they're necessary, and afterwards, again, there's that sense of relief, just like when you rip that Band-Aid off, just like that. And with our friends and our family, a lot of times what happens is we get inside our heads so much that they're going to be so disappointed, that they're going to show disappointment more than they're going to show love. And for some of us, maybe that's true. And if that's the case, I'm sorry, because that sucks. And that's not fair for you. That shouldn't be the way your family behaves. It shouldn't. And maybe you're in that spot, and that sucks. And if that's the case, I'm sorry. And the same with your friends. If your friends are authentic, they should just feel for you and be there. And just hang with you. And just be in that moment. And just be like, dude, this sucks. I'm sorry. That's shitty. And just live there. Just live there. Be that person to somebody else. If somebody else comes to you, this is the other thing. There's two sides to this story. If somebody else comes to you and you lent to them and they have the brass to come to you, edited for kids' sake, and they have the brass to come to you, and they want to be honest and authentic with you about what happened to them, treat them with the love that you would want to have treated, shown to you. Show them that. Don't come down on them. Show them empathy. Behave pragmatically. Don't be sympathetic, because that's pandering and that makes somebody feel small, and that's more like I told you so. The whole meh, 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 meh. That's not what people are looking for. It's a pragmatic, empathetic. Oh, dude, that sucks. That sucks. And more often than not, your family will show you that, because your family loves you. They do. They love you. They may show it in really stupid, weird ways, but the stupid, weird ways that they're behaving in is their only point of reference, and a lot of times what they think they're showing love with. And again, there's exceptions to this rule. So if you're on the other side of that coin and you don't have that, I'm really sorry. That sucks. And I feel for you and I pray for you, and that really does suck. Right? But family, friends, mentors, and close business associates, these conversations that you need to have with them. I remember when we were transitioning out of Detroit, just because of everything that was happening for the time being, and we're still out of Detroit because we still don't know everything that's going to happen with opening and recovery and where everybody's going to be at. We have some stuff there and we do some business there, but we're not fully there doing multiple projects like we were. When we decided to transition and we decided to look at opening an RV and trailer rental company, and I had to have those conversations with my family about, we're not going to work on houses anymore. We're going to rent trailers in the summertime only. It was kind of an awkward conversation. It was kind of an awkward conversation because even though there was belief there that we're successful and we can build a business and all these different things, and there's that understanding that, yeah, we can capably do this and we can fulfill on these actions. The conversation is, well, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to, when you're doing all this stuff with houses and you're doing all these other big dollar things and you're doing all these other big, whatever things, why would you want to go and rent trailers? Well, first of all, people need trailers. Right now, if you want to buy a new one, it's like a 25-week wait, right? So if you want to go camping in the first part of May or June and you're trying to get a new trailer, you're not going to get that, so you have to rent one. Secondly, there's a lot of people who don't want the maintenance overhead, blah, 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 the whole deal. And you almost feel like you have to go into this justification of your business model. And sometimes you do. But with these conversations, when it's the first conversations, it just makes it awkward because you just want to be like, look, this is what happened. This is what screwed up. And this is what we're trying to do to fix it. Right? And that a lot of times speaks more to the people you're talking to when you've actually thought through these things, when you actually thought out what you're going to say, how you're going to say it, why you're going to say it, right? And you have this process of this conversation. It shows that you care. But again, it never makes it easy. All of these things are necessary, but it doesn't make it easy. Talking to your family and admitting defeat and then saying, this is what I want to do to fix it, they're going to have their opinions on what they think you should do. Why? Because they're your family. And a lot of times they have 20 years perspective on you, 30 years perspective on you. And they know what they feel that you should do based on what their story is. And oftentimes they have a very good case to make. So maybe you should listen, for one. And maybe you shouldn't be afraid of the things that they're actually going to tell you, because a lot of the times the things that they tell you come from a place of love, and they come from a position of them observing you for the last who knows how many years and knowing you better than anybody else. Why? Because they're your family. They're your close friends. They're your close business associates. You spend more time in and out with them than anybody else. And this could have been, again, this could be your wife, this could be your mom, this could be your dad, this could be your best friend from high school, this could be your best business partner right now. But oftentimes it's people we respect. That's what makes this category so hard, is it's always people we respect. And when we respect people, we don't like to admit failure to them. Nobody likes to admit failure to people they respect because they fear disappointment. It all comes back to fear. It all comes back to fear. And sometimes, again, when we're all so focused on protecting ourselves, and we're also focused on making sure that our family is okay, especially in crazy times like this, fear often tends to dominate us. Fear often tends to be the thing that runs us, and the decisions we make are made out of a spirit of fear instead of a spirit of faith or a spirit of love, and that often leads to more destructive behavior. It just does. It's the way that humans are. It's what we do. We're really stupid creatures when you get right down to it. We're the most brilliant, stupid creatures in the history of God's creation. We really, really are. We have all this potential, all this capability, and most of the time the only thing we do is we use it to destroy ourselves and other people around us, which is absolutely ridiculous. So people, family, friends, mentors, close business associates, you got to have those conversations with them. And lastly, the last section of people you need to have conversations with is yourself. And this is always the hardest. This is always the hardest. Because before you can really have a productive conversation with any of these other individuals, you have to have a conversation with yourself. And you have to get back to the original point of reference on why all of this is happening. Like I talked about, the honesty. Right? The why didn't I do this? The why did I make these decisions? Why did I partner with this person? Why didn't I partner with this person? Why didn't I do more research on this investment? Why didn't I take, that opportunity to take that, chunk of money at 2% interest for the next however long, and have that signature note and all this other stuff when I had the credit and when I had the revenue, and why didn't this and why didn't that? And now I have to scramble, and now who knows with PPP, and what about Biden and Trump's impeachment, all this stuff. And it doesn't matter, because you have to turn it in. You have to turn it inward. You have to turn everything inward, and you have to look at yourself, and you have to say, all these outside factors, all of these decisions I made, why? Why did I make that choice? What was the narrative that was going on in my head? What was the reasoning that was going on in my head? What was what were the people who were talking at me in my head who influenced me? What was I trying to prove? What was my identity? What was my ego saying? Where was my ego driving me? And was that productive or was that destructive? A lot of if you're still listening at this point, it means it was probably destructive. If you haven't turned me off yet, it means it was probably destructive, and you're trying to figure out why. And that's awesome. Good for you. I'm glad. And we're running short on time. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up here, and we're going to talk about why this matters. We're going to talk about why specifically having the conversation with yourself matters and why it rolls out into everybody else. Okay? So the conversation with yourself matters because you need to be honest with yourself, and the conversations with everybody else matters because you need to be honest with everybody around you in order to make good decisions and then be held accountable to them. And once you can do that, every decision you make, once you get to that point of that brutal honesty, can then at least be viewed through an authentic lens, and then it gives you a higher probability for success. It allows you to move forward in a way that is at least real and authentic. Maybe it means you know your strengths. Maybe it means you've realized your weaknesses. Maybe it means next time you'll do things differently if you stay in the same industry. Maybe it means you can do stuff like what Shay and I did and carry stuff over from real estate and design and rentals and stuff and put it into something new that's similar and create an experience for somebody that way. Maybe you can make those transitions. Maybe you can't. But until you get to a point of that brutal honesty, you don't even know. You don't even know. And that's why it's important. And that's why you need to do it. And that's why you need to start having the conversation with yourself about who you are and what your identity is going to be. If you can't, look, I had a conversation with somebody, and somebody who saw this post, and I'm going to talk about it here just because it's a different medium and some of you don't follow me on the social medias. But I had a conversation with somebody about a strategic planning process that they wanted me to weigh in on. And it was for something that they had already had, a product that they had already had out, and they had a chance to hit the reset button. And the people that they had on the strategic planning team were unfocused, not because they weren't working hard and not because they weren't doing what was asked of them. They were just asked in a context that didn't give them a point of reference to look from. There was no identity for the product. And if the product didn't have an identity, you can't understand what the strengths and weaknesses are in the vertical that you've chosen. So you need to get honest with yourself. Does my product solve X? Do I solve Y? Do I produce Z? Am I this person? What is my identity? What is my path? Where are the blinders going to be? Get honest with yourself first. Understand where you did well. That's important, but also understand where you screwed up. That's also important. Double down on what you did well, understand to avoid the areas that you screwed up, and find somebody smarter than you to do those things. But choose that identity, because if you can't get back to that point of reference, then what the heck does it matter? All the decisions you make are nonsense anyway. Complete nonsense if you don't know what your product is and who you are. Complete nonsense. That's why the conversation is important. Have the conversation with yourself. If you're hitting the reset button, if you're rebuilding right now, have the conversation with yourself. I hope people made it this far, because that was some of the best shit on this podcast at this point. So where do you start? Wrapping it up, 26 minutes. I'm 6 minutes over my goal. We're going to go to 30 today. Starting with low-hanging fruit. You got to start with the people that you respect for how they handled difficult situations in the past, for how vulnerable they were. Not just in what you understand about how vulnerable they were in that situation, but how vulnerable they were with you when they shared that situation with you. And the reason you want to start with those people is because you want to build confidence. You want to build your belief system that you can have these conversations and it's going to be okay. And people aren't going to come at you guns blazing trying to pull that right hook or left hook or say those I told you so's and all that stuff that we're trying to avoid. That's what we're scared of. We're scared of the people we love and the people we respect being like, I knew you weren't going to be able to do this. I knew you were going to screw this up. Why are we scared of that? We did screw up. We couldn't do it. So, try something else. I mean, at some point along the line, our brains just break, because when we're kids and we're on the playground and we jump off stuff and we get hurt and our parents say, I told you not to do that. You shouldn't have jumped off it. What do? We just shrug and we get back up and we go up and we find something else to jump off of. Now, for whatever reason, we can't have those conversations. Did our parents love us any less because we climbed back up on the jungle gym and hung in the exact same place they told us not to? No. They may have thought we were dumber. They probably loved us more. They were a little charmed and a little frustrated that we were as stupid as they maybe thought or suspected that we were, right? But that didn't stop us. And then at some point we realized that we have to have some sort of awe and some sort of something where we can't, and it's rightfully so. And a lot of times, I'm not saying disrespect your parents, and I'm not saying don't care about your close friends and your family and stuff like that. But what I am saying is, don't care about your close friends and family as much as you do. Don't care about their opinions as much as you do, because it is your life that you do have to live. And these people are close to you, and they do love you, and they will respect you. And a lot of times love comes out in the form of disappointment. And when love comes out in the form of disappointment, it makes us feel bad. But it doesn't mean that the individual loves us any less. They're just behaving poorly in that situation. And that's why it's important to raise your belief system with individuals you care about. Maybe it's even just a therapist. Maybe you're just calling somebody and you're just talking to somebody for 2 or 3 sessions just to get some stuff off your chest, just to have the conversation, just to see what it's like, just to feel it. Because it is important, guys. And the reason it's important is because we can't move on from here. We can't move on from here because there's massive amounts of stress. And that's what we're going to talk about next week, is the stress that comes along with this. I'm going to wrap this up right now, hopefully in the next 45 seconds. All right, so I'm going to have you guys, if you're still listening, take one thing from this if you can. Be honest with yourself. Pinkies up. Be honest with yourself. Okay? One thing, be honest with yourself. Don't worry, the rest will come. But you got to get to that point where you're honest and authentic with yourself, because the rest will come spewing out of there. And that's what is going to be the most important thing, is getting to that point of reference and that base from where you can start to make those decisions, because then you can always get back to that. When you have that brutally honest, all awakening moment, that's where it comes in. So that's where things get real. Thank you, guys. My name is Mike. It's Michigan Business Talk. We'll see you next time.